You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning, everybody. This is Bob Gilligan of the Catholic Conference of Illinois, and thank you so much for joining our program here on this cold, frigid morning here in Chicago. It is really cold out. But here we are as we approach Christmas, which is now in, 6 days from now? It's hard to believe that we are this close to celebrating Christmas, which is nice. Get a little bit of a break here between Christmas and New Year's, we hope, and then back to it very first of the year next year. It's going to be a busy January for us at the Catholic Conference of Illinois, as the legislature is most likely to go back in session during what they're going to call a lame duck session, beginning on January 4th, and we have a lot of issues we're going to be involved with during that time. But today, what we want to do is to take kind of a deeper dive into some subjects, and we're going to talk about subjects that might be on the docket for us next year, or maybe not. Maybe we will find out as bills get introduced sometime in January. But nevertheless, let's just kind of go over an overview of the show right now. Our first guest will be on just here in a minute. She is Maria Jose Fernandez Lopez. She's with a group called Patients' Rights Action Fund. They do very good work across the 50 states, trying to organize states' advocates against what they call assisted suicide. And we'll talk about that with Maria here just in a second. And then secondly, we'll be talking with Mary Bauer. Mary, along with two other women, Mary Helen Fiorito and Mary Keene, wrote a response to an op-ed that was in the Chicago Tribune recently that really had a lot of false statements in it, and they tried to address those statements. And so far to date, we have not been able to get the Tribune to print that response. So we thought we'd talk about it here today for a couple minutes. And Mary Bauer will be on after Maria comes on. And then finally, we'll talk to, being a Christmas season, talk to an individual, Amy Palumbo. She is out at Catholic Charities in Joliet, and talk a little bit about what they do to help people's basic needs here during the holidays, where so many have so little, and Catholic Charities tries to provide something to those families in terms of their basic human needs. So we'll talk to Amy here about 8:40. So let's do this without further ado. If we have our first guest, and we do, Maria, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us here. I should add that I didn't know this, but for some reason I thought Maria lived in Wisconsin, and I was wrong. So it's about 2 a.m. Where she is. She's coming to us from Northern California. So thank you for getting up early here on this Monday morning, Maria. Thanks so much.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. And I would just like to clarify, my name is Maria Jose Fernandez Flores. You said Lopez, so.
Did I really? Well, I'll tell you, the reason is, did I say that? I knew that. I was probably looking at something else. Well, I don't know what the temperature is where you are, but it's 13 degrees here, so I think I'm still frozen from coming in from the outside. So stay where you are in Northern California, Miss Flores. So if I do that again, just interrupt me. Thanks for taking some time this morning. It's great to have you with us, like I said, this bright and early morning. So tell us a little bit about Patients' Rights Action. You've been there for a while now, but tell us a little bit about what you do in assisting states to respond to this increasing demand for assisted suicide. Is it increasing, do you think, across the 50 states?
That's a tough question. So I'll start with what is PRAF. So Patients' Rights Action Fund is a nonprofit. It's a national secular nonpartisan organization, and we focus solely on combating assisted suicide across the country we find it to be discriminatory against vulnerable people, in particular those with disabilities. And my role as coalitions director is to work across the nation, so with every state, to build coalitions or support those that are already existing and helping them with strategizing, with networking, and any kind of thing that they might need in order to be able to be successful in stopping any legislation or preventing for any legislation to even be presented. And so to answer your question, do I think it's increasing? I think that the proponents tend to make it look like it might be increasing and that there's more desire for it. But when we really think about it and when we really see it, we only really have 8 states that are legalized. And so with the Washington District of Columbia being also they having it legal. So we really have the majority of the US that actually says we don't want it. And so it just depends on the way that you're looking at it. They're going to give you a lot of personal stories. You're going to hear that people are asking for it, but a lot of states, have gone down into propositions and said that they don't want it, but yet we still have proponents trying to push it into the legislature.
Yeah, it's an interesting subject in that I agree with you based on my limited involvement with it, and I'm getting more and more involved in the details of it now that as we are preparing for possible legislation next year. Just looking at the other states and what's going on throughout the world, quite frankly, the other countries that have it. It seems to be a relatively small number of people who are clamoring for this, but yet they're pretty mighty in what their ability to advocate for this. Tell us a little bit about. I know every state's different, but basically, how does it work? What are the kind of the commonalities, the common themes of the legislation that's being passed across the country in those 8 states?
So the first state that made it legal was Oregon, and most states tend to look at Oregon as their example. So the terms that the legislation will have are things like it has to be for adults, so 18 and up. It normally has some sort of waiting period. The usual is about 15 days. It will have attestation, which will be either 1 or 2 times, and it has to be sometimes within that waiting period. Some will mention mental health evaluation, but doesn't necessarily require it. And due to lack of reporting, we don't always know if it's been for some of the states. In Oregon, where we have somewhat decent reporting, only 3% of the patients really get a mental health evaluation prior to it. Other aspects is that sometimes there's a falsification of the death certificate. So when they die, even though they chose assisted suicide, they will not put that they took the legal drugs as their form of death. They will just mention that it was through their illness, because for you to be eligible, you have to be in a terminal illness. However, some states are trying to expand into now not necessarily having a terminal illness. We have some accounts where there have been individuals with diabetes who have died, and the thing for that is because you can stop taking your treatment, and then that will then put you on making you terminal, and so then they would become eligible. Or if you have anorexia nervosa, unfortunately, that is not a terminal illness. That is a mental illness that can be treatable. But we do have accounts in Colorado, 2 women in their 30s who died from the lethal drugs because somehow they managed to make them eligible and make it seem like they were terminal. And we have another account in Oregon as well. So even though we have these so-called safeguards, we are noticing that there's some states that kind of push and check, or push those safeguards in. And because of the lack of reporting in the other states, we're not really sure. Maybe there's more accounts of these people that are dying, but we don't know because they're putting that they might have a terminal illness when they really don't, or they're just not mentioning it at all. How they made them eligible.
It seems from what I hear and what I read and what you see in the media that this is advocated for mostly by people who have a terminal illness or they think they're going to have a terminal illness and they don't want to die. You hear a lot about this is just an option. We're not saying everybody has to do it. It's just an option. And the option is needed because I don't want to experience pain at the end of death. Nobody wants somebody else to experience pain at all, right? Quite frankly, especially at the end of death. How do you answer that? Is because I've seen statistics that say that most people who actually do want to take those pills to end their life, the reason they cite is not necessarily pain, but they're pushing this because of pain. Is that accurate?
No, you're right with mentioning that statistics are actually pointing that it's not one of the top 5 reasons that people choose assisted suicide. So when we always point to Oregon data, because like I said, that's the state that provides somewhat decent information. So all with the other states, we can't really say much because they either are lacking data or they don't have accurate like data from every year. So with Oregon, we're saying that they're given the options to choose their reasoning, and they don't have to just choose just one. They can choose multiple. And it's a significant difference between the people who say they're choosing it for reasons of pain or fear of pain. So I would like to point out that they don't necessarily have to be in pain in the moment that they're requesting the drug. They can just be afraid of the pain. Mm-hmm. And that's usually around 26% of the people. The people who are mainly requesting it are people who, it's like, I believe it's like 96%. It's loss of autonomy.
Yep.
And it's about 92% of people who say that it's because they no longer have the abilities to do things that they used to do that made life enjoyable for them.
Yep.
So the top 5 reasons are things that are more of things that show a form of disability and loss of autonomy versus actual pain. And so, and another point that is important to point out is that there's nowhere in the bill that will say they have to exhaust all other options prior to requesting the drug. So I could be just given it, like you mentioned it, as an option. You can choose to end your life, or you can choose to choose life-saving treatment. It's not that you have to try this first and then you can, if all else fails, then you can try the lethal drugs. No. It's just more incentivizing, and something that I'd like to note, I don't know if you were planning on mentioning it later, but it's we see that this can then push assisted suicide for those who are poor because they might not be able to afford their life-saving treatment. And unfortunately, we have several accounts where the insurance companies are actually denying the treatment but offering assisted suicide to the patient because they make it more accessible for them. We have somebody in California, Stephanie Packer. She was offered a $1.20 copay, which is ridiculously cheap, but she was denied her treatment, and it was because assisted suicide had just become legal in that year. But prior to that, it was always they were providing the insurance for her treatment, and so it's just ridiculous how we can have that being pushed over the other, preferring to having them end their life.
And I think you started by saying that, I think in your introduction you said that you're particularly concerned in representing communities who are vulnerable, marginalized, and poor on the margins. And it's that population that, unfortunately, with our healthcare system being what it is today, it is not. People do not receive equitable treatment. People who have means have better insurance plans than those who with less means. That's just a fact. And the fear, I think, and this is I think there's two things here. There is a slippery slope argument, but there is the fear out there is that those people who are most poor and marginalized would be the first to be susceptible to the take this treatment, which is not a treatment, it's ending your life, as opposed to something that really could treat you and maybe alleviate the symptoms. That's a vast difference, and I think it's being sold and marketed to alleviate pain, but yet where this is going, I think many people should be concerned about what this not means, not tomorrow, but down the road as this becomes more in the culture. Here, just take this. All your problems are solved. And those people need the help more than maybe some others do.
Yeah, and we also add into the fear that this is going to sort of normalize
That's
suicide.
Right.
And and make it okay, and that can also cause you know an issue among family members. And a point we haven't also talked about is that abuse can also happen through this law. They're not everyone has a loving family, and sometimes there's greedy people, and they might want their mom or their sibling to
Yeah.
die so then they can get some kind of inheritance or whatever financial gain that they would get from that, or they just simply like don't want to deal with them, and there's really no safeguards for abuse, and so that's another concerning aspect as well.
One of the things I wanted to bring up too, we have about four minutes to go, is this does drive me crazy just on a personal level. I don't understand why, but the amount of attention this society gives to suicide is hardly any. And years ago, I was given a presentation, I think, on this subject, and I had to go through some statistics. And I thought, well, okay, suicide in general compared to other things, like how many are there? Just raw numbers. And I was shocked to find out that, like, I looked the other day, and I think last year, and it is a little different now, but according to the CDC, that there were, I think, in the United States last year, 52,000 suicides, and there are about 24,000 homicides. And any death is alarming, and we should be very concerned about, et cetera. And homicide is a big problem, especially where we are here today in Chicago. But if you look at the number of suicides compared to homicides, it's overwhelming. And not only that, but I think in Oregon, I'd be interested to hear your take on this, do you think there is a suicide contagion after this? Because I think in general, once the law says something is okay, people consciously and subconsciously are more open to doing it. I think that's the case with everything.
Yes, no, and completely. And we have seen stats to show it. I am blanking on the exact percentages, but I do know that in Oregon, we saw that there was a huge increase in suicide compared to the national average across the country. And so obviously suicide is going to be greater in Oregon because that was where assisted suicide is now legalized. And so it's like what I'm mentioning, it's normalizing the idea of killing yourself now, that and that it's okay. And when we're thinking about how we're trying so many aspects about suicide prevention for everyone else that's not at the end of their life, and what it's going to be confusing for them, like, well, why is it okay to take my life once I'm terminally ill or at the end of my life, but not right now that I think my life is ending right now, and like all those things that come into their head. So it's just very contradictory, and it really will increase the amounts of suicide that happen nationwide if this is to become something that happens across the country. Thankfully, it's not legalized in the majority of states, but there is a push to increase it. And something that we've seen as well is that since they're not being successful through legislation at the states, they're going through court cases, and one of the things that they removed in Oregon was that they removed the residency requirement. So before it used to be that you had to be a resident of Oregon in order to request these drugs, but now you can live, like in Idaho, you can live in any of the surrounding states or anywhere really, and just go to Oregon and ask for the drugs, and then you can go back. And due to the lack of reporting and reinforcement, like, we don't know if they're actually taking the drugs when they're in Oregon, or they're bringing it back home. Somebody else might get the drugs. It's just really, it's not well tracked and reported.
It's a scary thing. Last week, somebody had sent me. You may have seen this. This is years ago. I think it was filmed in 2016. HBO Vice. I didn't even know there was such a thing. HBO Vice. They did it was probably about a 15-minute segment on this topic when it was pending in California. And it was clearly slanted, showing how compassionate and lovely this thing is. But I have to tell you, I watched it, and I can't get this out of my mind. They went to the Netherlands, and they filmed a woman who had requested to die. And they filmed the whole thing, the whole process, her coming in. And the woman was perfectly fine. I mean, they said at the beginning that she had some mental issues, and she apparently always wanted to die. And now that she was 76, she was going to do it. And they showed this woman actually dying, and the injection and the nurse coming and the kids, her older children coming. It was very disturbing. The normalization of this is just, she was just going to sleep. And I thought, gosh, this is a slippery slope that I think people need to really stop and think about, because if you're going to normalize that, you may be on a road you can't get back on the road to sanity.
Yeah, it really is a slippery slope. And I think the first accounts of us seeing how this is maybe going a little too far is in California, where through a court case, they tried to make basically assisted suicide available for those with ALS. They were saying that it was discriminatory against them because one of the safeguards is that you have to be able to self-ingest the drug. And so for those with that, they wouldn't be able to. And so basically they were making it euthanasia at this point, because someone else would have to administer the drug. And thankfully they lost. They appealed and they did it again, but we do expect them probably to appeal again. But so far we're seeing how there is that push, and our neighbors in Canada, euthanasia is just completely normal over there, and it's one of the extreme areas where we can look at, and that might be our future if we're not careful and if we don't stop this and if we don't educate people correctly.
Yeah, their numbers are staggering. And I think you're see people in Canada saying like, whoa, wait a minute, we've gone a little too far here. You're starting to hear that, reports coming back to the United States. Maria, we got to jump. Thank you so much for taking some time this morning. Maria Jose Fernandez Flores, sorry for mispronouncing your name earlier. Thanks so much for taking some time with us. I know it's a tough subject, especially around the holidays, but I think we're going to be talking about it here in Illinois next year. Hope not, but I got a feeling we're going to be. Thank you so much and have a great Christmas.
Thank you.
Thanks. Don't go away, everybody. We'll be right back. We're going to be talking to Mary Bauer. She penned a response to an article in the Chicago Tribune, and we want to get her take on why she did so and some of the false narratives put forth in that editorial. Don't go away, everybody. We'll be right back.
Catholic Charities Refugee Resettlement Program has been especially busy this year, assisting individuals and families who have fled dangerous situations in their homeland, including Afghanistan and the Ukraine. The Refugee Resettlement Team helps with everything they need to start to rebuild their lives in a new country, including housing, employment, clothing, food, English classes, and referrals for legal and immigration services. The refugees are tremendously grateful for the compassion and practical help they're receiving, and they're giving back and helping each other plan for a brighter, safer future. Volunteer opportunities are currently available for those who would like to be family mentors and tutors, so children and adults can practice English. To learn more about these rewarding opportunities, call 312-655-7096. That's 312-655-7096.
I am a seminarian.
The church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at archchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
Did you know that Catholic Charities accepts car donations? If you're ready to free up space in your garage and put a stop to all those expenses that go along with owning a car, we will gratefully accept your donation, whether the car is running or not. You choose a pickup time that is convenient for you, and we will make the donation as easy as possible free of charge. You'll receive a charitable donation receipt as well. We accept all types of vehicles nationwide, and you will know that your donation is made to Catholic Charities, an agency you can trust. To learn more about donating your car, call 877-786-4483. That's 877-786-4483. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Bob Gilligan of the Catholic Conference of Illinois, and thank you for listening or watching our program here today on WNDZ, 750 AM in Chicago. A very frigid Chicago. It's 13 degrees according to my car thermometer. We're going to switch gears here a little bit and talk about, it was an op-ed, I guess, that was in the Chicago Tribune a couple weeks ago. With us, I hope we have Mary Bauer. Mary, are you with us? Maybe not.
Yes, I am.
Still hear music. I can hear
morning.
you. That's the main thing. Are you singing this nice music? Are you playing this in the background for us? Mary, you can hear me okay, right? Maybe not.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, there we go. I think I can hear you now. I'll probably see you here in a second. But anyway, a little bit. Maybe everything's frozen here this morning. Mary, thanks for taking some time to join us this morning. There was I guess it's an op-ed, you'd call it, in the Tribune a couple weeks ago. And it was interesting. It was written by, there you are, some professors at Notre Dame. I think it was like a global affairs professor or something like that. It wasn't in the traditional program you would think of. I guess I was struck by, and I'll ask you about the contents of it and the response, but I thought when I read it, I thought, geez, okay, Dobbs has passed. Clearly, those advocating for abortion rights have had a lot of political wins lately, and the wind is clearly at their back. And when I read this, I just thought to myself, they're now taking this to the next level. The next level is to basically repudiate just basic biological facts. I mean, I think we've always been in this wishy-washy territory here. We advocate the baby and the woman, and they advocate for rights, and that's been going on for you. But I kind of thought this was taking it to the next level. They were disputing basic scientific facts that we all know. I think there was a sentence in there, something about debating that abortion even kills an unborn child. I think there was another statement. They clearly don't like the abortion pill. They think that's just like taking Tylenol. And I think their third thing is, third trimester abortions, they really don't happen except for like these very, very rare situations. Tell us about what you thought when you read that op-ed.
Well, when I first read it, I wasn't sure which direction the authors were going, since I saw that they were Notre Dame professors. And so I was kind of surprised as I read it, to be honest with you. And I felt that as I read one paragraph after the next, their lies that they're claiming to have lies that women are being told were all lies. And they outlined 4 or 5 items that they felt were lies to women, when in fact there was so much wrong in their article. And it was very upsetting to me, because I feel like the public deserves to know what the truth really is. And they were whitewashing things in their article that were so serious that they were just spewing disinformation to the readers and for women.
So you're a midwife, correct? So that's you're a midwife, and so you know a lot about childbirth. So tell us about some of the things that you thought were wrong in the article, and what you think should be put in and correct the record.
Well, their lie number 2 was that abortion kills babies.
Yeah.
They're using the term babies to make you think that it's a little one in your arms. And they said during the first 10 weeks of pregnancy, there are no babies or fetuses. developmentally, we know scientifically a human being starts at the moment of fertilization of a sperm and an egg. It has its own separate DNA at that point in time, distinguishable from the mother. Within days, it develops a beating heart. But the parts to make that heart were all there at the moment of conception. A blastocyst is a developmental stage shortly after fertilization that lasts for 5 days. Then it becomes an embryo, another term, a developmental term. No different than a fetus versus a baby versus a toddler versus an adult versus an aging adult. These are all stages of human development. I felt that they were lying to women, when they say there's no baby. I mean, I've been a midwife for a long. My patients will say, I'm having a baby. They're not like I'm having a blastocyst
Right.
or something else. When someone finds themselves pregnant, even women who don't want children or don't want the pregnancy will say, I'm having a baby, but I don't want it.
Right. What do you think motivated them to write this? I was, like I said, my supposition is that they're just trying to take this to the next level by now just denying basic facts. You think I'm right, or you think there's something more to this, or I just don't know what spurred this type of. They're misstatements. They're just not true. A lot of these things they say are just inaccurate.
Well, I think women who want to keep abortion legal have an agenda, and they will pull out all stops, and including not telling the truth to people to keep this legal. I think that often some of their agenda is tied to women's rights over their own body versus realizing that we're dealing with two people here.
Yep.
And they're forgetting that piece. They're not giving humanity status to that unborn baby.
The other thing that struck me about this is about the third trimester abortions. When we were debating the so-called Reproductive Health Care Act back, what was that, 2019 or whatever it was, I remember having a long, protracted, numerous conversations with one of the state senators about that. And he was just in absolute denial that third trimester abortions existed. And, and I remember relying on some of your colleagues that help write this letter and sending him, scientifically based stories, journal articles, in respected medical journals talking about third trimester. They do exist, but it just seems like there's. Eventually, what happened, honestly, is we just had to agree to disagree and walk away and say, okay, for the sake of this relationship, this is just I'm not gonna persuade you, and you're not gonna persuade me. But I was astounded by how there was that much denial into what a third trimester abortion. And where do you think that comes from? Because it's in this article too. They say something very similar.
Yeah. Right. Well, it can be. It's so unpalatable, as you can only imagine, to even think about it. That they are denying that it exists. I will say, as a licensed healthcare provider, I have not seen any third trimester abortions in my own practice or in places that I have worked. They are more rare. But the scary thing is that they're legal in Illinois, so if somebody was willing to do it, and there are very, very few obstetricians that would probably even be willing to do it, but they do them. And sometimes there are medical circumstances with the fetus that may be incompatible with life. And so the parents are counseled to terminate it rather than allow it to go to its natural death. I think that's really hard on women, but we don't see too many of them, fortunately.
Right.
but it is legal in Illinois. It is legal to be able to do that. If you could find a provider, you can have it done.
Yep. It seems too that the other thing in the story is there's a lot of abortions now with the abortion pill. I hear different numbers all the time, and it seems like this is. Are we embarking in a whole new era of abortion as it relates to because of the pill? Are those harder to track, those numbers? If somebody, because if there's a procedure, I would think that gets tracked more so than if there's just a request for, I forgot the name of the drug, but the abortion pill.
I think the big danger with the abortion pills is that they're now being able to be prescribed on the internet without an actual face-to-face examination by a physician. And I think that, if women are getting these things on the internet, not even going to an abortion clinic, there will be tragedies that happen at home that nobody is even aware of or even know that they're taking them. In that article from December 5th, Chicago Tribune, they said, they outlined their lie number 3 was that abortion was dangerous, and that they likened the abortion pills to the safety of taking Tylenol. Tylenol doesn't require the provider to outline all the risks to the patient prior to taking the pills. There are requirements by the FDA for providers to share information on the risk of the mifepristone prior to prescribing it. And there are times when mifepristone is the first of the 2 types of abortion pills, that there are certain times when you should never be giving this particular medication to a woman.
Yeah.
For example, somebody who is on corticosteroids or somebody who's got a bleeding disorder. Those are a couple of the big ones. And you want to make sure that they don't have an ectopic pregnancy, a tubal pregnancy where they're pregnant, it's in the tube. Taking those drugs could cause serious rupture of the tube and the ovary, and massive hemorrhage. So that's a big risk.
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't, and I would think that also, if you're taking a pill that you procured over the internet in the privacy of your own home, and it goes through with the procedure, it's not like if you go to a clinic, you're going to something and leaving it, and whatever happened there, you're physically removed from that if you go to an abortion facility. But if you happen in your own home, I have to think that for some people, that's got to be a hard thing to sort of deal with, maybe emotionally, and constant reminders of it, being that it's in your own home or wherever it happens. So, I got it. My point is that I think there's some things we're overlooking here, the psychological trauma of this being happening in the privacy of your own home as opposed to, having that in the clinic. I just can't think that's good for women overall.
I guess I hadn't thought about the aspect of, being alone in your own home. It doesn't just happen with the internet pills. It happens truly with, even if you go to an abortion clinic, they have you take the first pill at home, at the office, under their supervision, because they have to, or had to, I should say. Now you don't have to because of the laws have changed. But the actual abortion itself doesn't happen for a day or two until you take the second pill, which is the misoprostol, which causes the uterus to expel the contents of itself.
So it does happen.
Pardon me?
So that does happen at home. Yeah, the second pill.
It always, yes, the medication abortions
Good point.
always end up at home or someplace other than a clinic site. Yes.
Okay.
And it's unsupervised and very, you can expect a ton of bleeding with an abortion. And how much is too much? Women don't always know. And when it seems like it's too much, they end up in the emergency room for help.
Yeah, yeah. So as a midwife, then, you're primarily delivering babies. I don't know if you've heard, but there's also a lot of talk in Illinois about allowing midwives to perform abortions as well at some level. Have you heard that in your circles at all? Because there's a piece of legislation that's kind of floating out there. It hasn't really been talked about much, but it's out there.
Yes, I'm very aware of it.
Okay.
The American College of Nurse Midwives I would categorize them as very far liberal left, very pro abortion. At their meetings, they are having coursework on how to do vacuum extraction abortions so that you could be clinically trained to do the quote unquote surgical abortions. I guess, doing a vacuum assisted isn't a surgical abortion. Let me clarify that. That's more like a dilation and evacuation. But they're offering training to do that. And because I am a pro-life Catholic, I have stopped my membership in the American College of Nurse Midwives because it is so beyond my beliefs. I can no longer participate. But I will tell you, my colleagues are radically pro-choice, radically supporting women having abortions, and they're all learning. The younger midwives are all learning how to do this.
That's sad to hear.
It's
that.
Very sad.
Yeah, that makes me more concerned because I'm not surprised, though. I'm not surprised. Mary, we have to jump. Thank you for taking some time here this morning to talk about this, and thank you for your response to the Tribune op-ed. And we hope it gets in there at some point. Don't know if and or when, but we keep trying. Mary, thanks so much, and have a great Christmas.
Right. I doubt it, but we'll see.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is Bob Gilligan of the Catholic Conference. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We'll be talking to Amy Palumbo with Catholic Charities out in Joliet.
We are hiring. Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Chicago is looking for mission-driven individuals who want to help make a positive difference in the lives of people in need throughout Cook and Lake counties. Be part of a diverse, talented team of professionals in the largest human services organization in the Midwest. We are dedicated to helping people chart a more stable, happier future for themselves, and we accompany anyone in need, regardless of faith, gender, race, or ethnicity. Competitive salaries and generous benefits add to the satisfaction you'll have every day knowing that you're helping us amplify our impact in Chicago. To see our list of employment opportunities, visit CatholicCharities.net.
Do you have an old bicycle that's not being used? Consider donating it to Catholic Charities Veterans Bike Project of Lake County. Skilled volunteers are refurbishing bicycles to make them safe and ready to be used by veterans to get to and from their new places of work. We also gratefully accept financial contributions that are used to purchase bike helmets and other safety accessories. Our veterans have faithfully served the United States, and now it is our privilege to serve them. For more information on the Veterans Bike Project of Lake County, call 847-782-4219. That's 847-782-4219.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Bob Gilligan of the Catholic Conference of Illinois, and thank you for listening and watching our program here today. Finally, we're going to close it out on a brighter note. This is kind of a tough show here today. The week before Christmas, we're talking to Amy Colombo at Catholic Charities of the Joliet Diocese. Amy, you with us?
Yes, hello. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. So we have Christmas. I can't believe Christmas is like a week from yesterday. Isn't that incredible? It just seems like time's flying right by. And
real fast.
I know. It's just, I think it being on a Sunday. It's on a Sunday, right? I think that maybe that's why. I don't. Maybe it sneaks up on you more when it's on a weekend. I don't know. It just seems like this week has been. I keep thinking it's next week, and next week is here. So tell us a little bit about. I know you spend a considerable amount of time, energy, and effort out in working with Catholic Charities to help people have a better Christmas. Maybe not a perfect Christmas, but a better Christmas. Tell us how it's going. I know you're doing a lot of different things, so tell us a little bit how what you guys are doing to help some of the people who are not as fortunate as others.
Sure. So every year we do try to connect families in need that are, less fortunate with funders and donors who want to give back to the community. And so each year we probably serve maybe anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 families or individuals during the holiday season. And that's across all 7 counties. And so we really work with the parishes in the community, reaching out to ask them to adopt our families in need. And then with the change, we've made some changes. It used to be a lot of dropping off of holiday gifts, whereas during the pandemic, we had to kind of transition.
Yeah.
And we were asking more for, gift cards that would be easily distributed to the families in need during the pandemic. So I would say we get a good turnout. We do each year have to have a wait list. We can't always serve everybody in need. So it really helps, really helps when the parishes and community members donate to this initiative.
So it's basically toys, things like that. Fun things for the kids. That sort of thing.
Toys, clothes, winter jackets, and gloves, things like that.
Got it.
Things that they all need. Yep.
Yeah. And if somebody wanted to donate, what's the best way to do that? Is it internet, online, or is it through a phone number? Or why don't you give that if you could?
Sure. So the best way to donate would be to go to our website, which is www.catholiccharities.joliet.org.
There you go. I think it's up on the screen now. It's www.catholiccharities.joliet.org. It's coming up on the screen now. It shows some of the activities you guys have had out there. So do people come in then, and you said there's more need that you can match, so you still need some items, toys, and I guess coats, gloves, that kind of stuff's the winter weather gear, which is desperately needed on a day like today. So you mentioned COVID too. So is there now kind of a transition sort of away from the standard, Christmas toys that we've kind of seen over the last, forever, and maybe more towards the gift card component? Is that better for people too, I would think?
Yes, definitely better for people with the gift cards for distribution. But also, I think it gives our families that are sponsored just a little more dignity and ownership when they get to take the gift cards and go purchase the toys for their children. And they have a little more decision making in that. But it also helps because we try to provide not just the a Target or a Kohl's gift card, but also grocery store gift cards so that they're able to provide or, purchase items to make a holiday meal.
Do you think the economy's had any impact on that this year? It's kind of a strange economy right now. Unemployment's low, people generally working, but gosh, prices going through the roof. I think we're all kind of figuring out what the heck's going on here. How does that impacting you guys? Are people not giving as much because they don't have as much to give? Stock market's down. All this stuff it affects you at some level.
Yeah, I think initially, 2 years ago when the pandemic hit, I think donations were down. But I think we're moving in a better direction. And you're right. I mean, even, we work with families who are paycheck to paycheck, struggling on a daily basis. And when we see the inflation hit, that just makes it all the, it's 10 times harder for them to get by and make ends meet.
How are they getting by? I got to tell you, even myself, I was like, wow. I mean, sometimes you go to the grocery store and, well, I don't, but people in my house go to the grocery store and they come back and like, spend X number of dollars. Do you know what a dozen eggs cost? Well, I don't, but I know they've gone up a lot.
I do.
Yeah, you do. But I even little things like, buying gas and things like that I have to do. It's incredible how much it is. And I was thinking for somebody who's just making a paycheck to paycheck, I don't know how they do it. I really don't.
Yeah, I think that we have seen an increase, in people requesting services. So our community services division, that's what we do. We provide basic needs. So if people need help, we'll give them food cards. We'll give them transportation passes to get to go to the food. Catholic Charities also operates a mobile food pantry program where we try to get out to the communities in greatest need at least once a month, if not more, and provide that free food. But, I think that's how those that are struggling on a day-to-day before the inflation have to get by. They have to be resourceful and find these community providers that can help them meet those needs and stretch their dollars.
Are people pretty astute at doing that, figuring out like how to make ends meet that way through community? Do they figure out that system fairly quickly?
I think so. I can tell you, again, 2 years ago when the pandemic hit, and a lot of people lost their jobs, we saw a great increase in individuals and families seeking assistance that would have never been to our doors before. And those were folks who didn't know where to turn or where to get help from, because that was not, they hadn't needed to get help before. So there were some of those families that we had to kind of, you just got to provide all the resources that are available in that community.
Yeah.
And make them aware.
I would think somebody in your position, though, you get to go to some of these like fairs they have, I suppose. I mean, they have these, the kids come in and they have some things there to pick out. And I would think from somebody in your position, that's got to be a pretty affirming aspect of your job to kind of see that, that inherent joy that kids get. And even grown-ups, for that matter, who are probably just relieved that there might be a winter coat or something that they really need. I got to think that's kind of a cool thing for you to experience personally.
It really is. Last week at the office, we've already started doing the distribution. So families would typically get sponsored by a church. They would go out and pick them up. But if they miss the pickup or can't make the pickup, we will pick them up and then come to the office. And just the gratitude that the individuals were expressing when they would come to get their gifts, receiving a lot more than they would have ever anticipated. It brings a lot of joy.
Yeah.
And to hear that happiness and see the kids, I was there when we had to distribute them. Somebody got a brand new bike. A kid got a brand new bike. Yeah. And, just the joy of that. It is very rewarding.
Yeah. I remember I got a bike. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You get those things you never forget. That's great, and you're able to be part of that sort of thing. So once the holidays end, you probably have a bit of a transition time, and then with the first of the year starting up again, is it right back to kind of the basic human needs sort of thing? I mean, this never goes away for you guys. I'm sure you get a little bit of a bump down.
The basic human needs, that never stops.
Yeah.
This is just the add to it. So once the holidays end, we keep plugging along, and actually our holiday coordinator, she's also our back to school fair coordinator. So every year Catholic Charities conducts back to school fairs for low income families who are returning to school in all three areas. And that's a major undertaking. So really that planning starts in March, April.
Yeah.
So once she wraps up holidays, she's moving right into the next
next
Jolie,
event. That diocese is interesting because it's really kind of a suburban, rural diocese, probably more and more suburban every year, probably gets more and more suburban. Do you find the needs different in different parts of the diocese, or you do? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We cover, the Diocese of Joliet covers DuPage County, Will, Grundy, Kendall, Kankakee, Fort, and Iroquois. And so when you get towards the Fort Iroquois or some of the more rural areas of Will County, the needs are very different than what you would see in DuPage.
Mm-hmm.
So
more in terms of the need is higher, or more?
The need is higher,
okay,
and there's less resources in those areas.
Resources. That makes sense.
So Catholic Charities is even more important, I think.
Yeah. Amy, thanks so much for taking some time here this morning. It is the Christmas season. We try to remind people of what this is all about, the reason, Christ came and was born, and of that gift-giving component of it makes people feel good. And so the degree that, they can help support your agency and the other Catholic Charities agencies out there is really a great thing. Before we close out, give us your address one more time.
The email the website is www.catholiccharities.joliet.org.
It's CatholicCharities.Joliet.org, and there it is up on the screen. Amy, thanks so much. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we have about 2 minutes here to conclude our program, and just a note from us here at the Catholic Conference that, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be pretty busy here coming up in the upcoming weeks as the new legislature comes in on January 11th. But before that, we're going to have some fun in what they call a lame duck session, which is basically a time when the lawmakers who are still in office have one more chance at passing legislation that they haven't been able to do for the past 2 years that they've been in session. So we're looking at a number of different things. Obviously, the first and foremost, the first priority is the scholarship tax credit. We are trying to pass that, the extension of that, in the upcoming lame duck session. And every day is a different venture with that, so we'll see how we do. We keep plugging away every day. We have a different idea. We have a lot of support. The question is, do we have enough support? So to be determined, so say a prayer that works. We have some other issues as well that we're concerned about. Recently, you may have seen the conference put out a statement about assault weapons. The bishops are calling for a ban on high-capacity magazines and assault weapons, and we hope to see that legislation pass in the lame duck session. A lot of talk about it. Thirdly, we are participating in a coalition, as we've talked about before on this program, regarding predatory loans, those made by pawnbrokers. For some reason, the pawnbrokers are now no longer subject to the 36% interest rate cap, and so we are trying to put the pawnbrokers back into that 36% cap because without it, they can charge up to 240% interest, and we don't think that's justifiable. So we continue to try to pass that in the lame duck session. And then finally, we're very concerned about the rumor on these abortion bills that may or may not be heard in the upcoming lame duck session. There are probably 3 or 4 of them, different topics. We don't know if those will be heard or not, but we are prepared to put out a statement and to advocate against those, to defend life at all stages. So with that note, that's what we have coming up. It's going to be a busy time between after Christmas and the New Year's, and then as we approach the lame duck session. So I'll sign off here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope you have the merriest of Christmases, and we will talk again in the new year of 2023. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Join us every Monday through Friday at this time for Catholic Chicago. You can stream our programs live or listen to past programs by visiting our website, archchicago.org, and clicking on Radio TV. And please connect with Catholic Chicago on social media.